Yes. So we learned about the structures of the brain last class. We have reached, finished the brain structures, and that's a part of the CNS. Now we'll be learning about the spinal cord today. Hmm? We'll start. Yes. So the spinal cord. The spinal cord is a long rope-like collection of nerve fibers which run along the full length inside the spine or the backbone. Its one end is connected with the medulla of the brain and another is free at the tail end. The butterfly-shaped mass of gray matter present in the center of the spinal cord contains association neurons, and again white matter contains the neural tracts. So we'll see the basic structure. See here inside the backbone, it is covered by the backbone, and inside that we have the rope-like structure, that is the spinal cord. So from the brain, the in the hindbrain we studied about the medulla oblongata last class, right? So from there it connects to the spinal cord. So the brain and spinal cord forms the, they are the organs that forms the central nervous system. So after the brain's part, that is the medulla oblongata, it connects to the rest of the part of the central nervous system, which is our spinal cord, and it is a rope-like structure, and it is covered by the spine or the backbone. And so at one end we have the medulla, and at the other end it has a free end. It is not joined to anything. Yes. So the butterfly-shaped mass of gray matter present in the center of the spinal cord contains association neurons and other cells. Surrounding the gray matter is the white matter of the spinal cord, which is composed of the ascending and descending neural tracts. These tracts, that is a collection of nerve fibers, connect the brain with the rest of the body. The spinal cord plays the role of a huge cable which exchanges innumerable messages with the CNS. So if we take the spinal cord and take a cross section of it, then we'll see a butterfly shaped structure. I'll show you the picture. Yes, see, this is the butterfly shaped structure. So inside part, in that gray part, we call it the gray matter, and the outside structure after the or lying next to the butterfly structure is the white matter. How this color difference occurs is in the white matter there are more of myelinated sheets. The myelin sheets are more in the white matter. Where does the myelin sheath occur? In the structure of a neuron? In the cell body, dendrite, or the axon? Which part has
Axon.
axon? Yes, correct. So in the this particular white matter area, what happens is the axon parts have more myelinated sheets. Myelinated sheets are more in number, and that is why we get a whitish color for that. And that's why we call it the white matter. On the other hand, for the gray matter, we have more of the cell bodies. Okay, and here the cell bodies are less in number, but we have more of the myelinated axons. There we have less myelinated axons and more of the cell bodies in gray matter. So the white matter, white color comes from the myelinated sheets, myelin sheets. Yes. So in the butterfly-shaped mass of gray matter present in the center of the spinal cord contains association neurons. Association neurons, also known as interneurons, they are just for connection purpose, for associating different areas. And surrounding the gray matter is the white matter of the spinal cord, which has the ascending and descending neural tracts. So here we have the what part? The association neurons inside the gray matter, that is in the butterfly structure, and in the white matter we have the ascending as well as descending neural tracts. What that means is, here it connects, these tracts are the collection of nerve fibers, and they connect the brain with the rest of the body. So if this is the spinal cord, then ascending tracts means from the lower part through the spinal cord to the brain. So from the different parts of the body, information is collected and it passes through the spinal cord, and it sends to the brain for the further processing. Okay, that is the ascending tract, ascending neural tract. And the descending neural tract would be from the brain, originating from the brain. The information is collected from the brain. It passes through the spinal cord and sends messages to the rest of the parts of the body. So that is about the ascending and descending neural tract. So the spinal cord, inside that we have the gray matter as well as the white matter. Gray matter is the butterfly structure inside, and white matter is the outside part. In the gray matter, we have the association neurons and the other cells, while in the outer part, in the white matter, where we have more of the myelin sheath axons, there what we have is the ascending and descending neural tracts, which are also the nerve fibers. And ascending tracts, they carry information from rest of the parts of the body through the spinal cord and sends it to the brain. And descending neural tracts, it comes down, that is from the brain, it collects information, and then through the spinal cord it is sent to the rest of the parts of the body. That is about the ascending and descending neural tract. And mainly the spinal cord has two main functions. Write down. Firstly, it carries sensory impulses coming from the lower parts of the body to the brain, and motor impulses originating from the brain to all over the body. That is what we just discussed. That is, from different parts of the body, we have the sensory information. So it has to be processed. So we take all those information, and through the spinal cord, it reaches the brain. Now from the brain, we have to get information regarding the motor movements. We have to take action for the senses that we received. So from the brain, through the spinal cord, it reaches the different areas of the body. So that is one function, relaying information to and fro in the CNS, that is to the brain and from the brain. Then second function is it performs some simple reflexes that do not involve the brain. Simple reflexes involve a sensory nerve, a motor nerve, and the association neurons of the gray matter of the spinal cord. And the second main function of the spinal cord is the reflex action. Have you heard about reflex action? Yes, yes. For example, when you touch something hot, you pull your hands back. That is a reflex action. Then when somebody waves in front of you, you give the blink of an eye. That is a reflex action. Then when somebody comes to hit you, you suddenly try to defend yourself. That is again a reflex action. So for all these reflex actions, we don't need the brain actually. The information processing happens at the level of the spinal cord, because suppose we we are walking on a road, and suddenly there was a piece of paper was burning, that was lying on the road, and we didn't see it. Suddenly we were walking with on bare feet, and we stamped on it accidentally. So if this information from our legs has to be carried through the rest of the parts of the body, and it has to reach the brain, it has to be processed, and then finally the information has to again pass through all these pathways and go back to the leg, and then it has to reach the muscles in the leg for us to pull our legs back, right? So that takes more energy and more time. So in order to prevent that, our body has a mechanism at the spinal cord level itself. So because of the spinal cord, we have a reflex action. That is when our bare feet touches the hot thing, or the something that is burning, that is lying on the ground, then we can automatically pull our legs back. That is a reflex action. So in order to save ourselves, or in order to conserve our energy, in order to save ourselves from any threats, we have these reflex actions present. And in the reflex action, the part of the central nervous system that is involved is the spinal cord. So the two main functions of the spinal cord, one is relaying information, that is collecting information from rest of the parts of the body, giving it to the brain, then taking information from brain and relaying it to different parts of the body. And again, the second one is the reflex action. Now we'll see what the reflex action is. A reflex is an involuntary action that occurs very quickly after its specific kind of stimulation. The reflex action takes place automatically without conscious decision of the brain. Reflex actions are inherited in a nervous system through evolutionary processes, for example, the eye blinking reflex. So almost in all humans, we have this eye blinking reflex. So it has been developed as a process of the evolution. Whenever any object suddenly comes near our eyes, our eyelids blink. That is common for us. Then reflexes serve to protect the organism from potential threats and preserve life. Though several reflex actions are performed by a nervous system, the familiar reflexes are the knee jerk, pupil constriction, pulling away from very hot or cold objects, breathing, and stretching. Most reflex actions are carried out by the spinal cord and do not involve the brain. Yes. So what you have to note here is it is reflex action is an involuntary action, means we do not take the conscious effort, or we are not consciously making a decision to pull our hands or legs back or to blink an eye. Do you really unless it is to play with some small kids, we don't really make conscious efforts to blink our eyes, right? It is happening automatically. So that is again a reflex action. So it is an involuntary action, means it happens automatically without our will. Then it happens without the knowledge of the brain or without the help of the brain. Then you can give some examples for it. That is eye blinking, knee jerking, the jerk movements or the shaking movements of the knees. Then pupil constriction. We learned that in the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. Pupil constriction means the narrowing of the pupil, and pupil dilation is also again a reflex action. Then pulling away from very hot or cold objects, yes. Then breathing and stretching, all those comes under the reflex action. And the main point is you don't need the brain, or there is no involvement of the brain in this reflex action, because the information processing happens at the level of the spinal cord. So we have finished the nervous system. We have finished the central nervous system. Which were the structures in the central nervous system? Ashish, tell me. The two organs in the central nervous system?
Brain and
Brain and
and brain and spinal cord.
spinal cord. Very good. Now we are moving on. Yeah, we have a picture of the reflex action. Yes. Here, it is regarding a sharp object. The girl is trying to touch the sharp object, and the receptors are there in our skin who receive this information, the sensory information. Then electrical impulses are sent by the sensory neurons to the spinal cord, and it doesn't reach the brain. At the spinal cord level itself, the information is processed, and then suddenly the child can pull her hand back. Okay, that is what is happening here. Now we move on to the next topic, that is endocrine glands. Do you know what a gland is? Have you heard about the term gland? No? Everybody looks so blank. Yes or no? Yes or no? No. Okay. Endocrine glands are a set of glands. Gland means any organ that gives its secretions. It produces some chemical substances or any other substances in our body. For example, we have which gland produces the saliva? Do you know?
Salivary glands.
Salivary glands. And which gland produces the tears?
Ear glands.
Tear gland. Okay, which gland produces the sweat? Sweat glands. Yeah, of course. So now we are going to learn about a different set of glands which are called endocrine glands. And what makes endocrine glands special is that the other glands, most of the other glands have ducts, ducts. They have ducts, and it is through these ducts that they send their secretions to different parts of the body. But endocrine glands, they are the ductless glands. Means they don't have a duct to send their secretions, and they directly secrete into the bloodstream. Okay, they directly, just like we directly inject certain things into our bloodstream. Similarly, the endocrine glands, they give out their secretions, which are called hormones. The chemical substances that endocrine glands produce are called hormones. And these hormones are secreted directly into the bloodstream. That is what makes the endocrine glands different from the other glands. And here, they secrete specific chemical substances called hormones. These glands are called ductless glands or endocrine glands because they do not have any duct, unlike other glands, to send their secretions to specific places. Hormones are circulated by the bloodstream. The endocrine glands form the endocrine system of the body. This system works in conjunction with different parts of the nervous system. The whole system is thus known as the neuroendocrine system. So we have a few number of glands in the that forms the group of endocrine glands. So together, this system of the system of the endocrine glands are together called as the endocrine system, obviously. And this endocrine system works along with the central nervous system or the other nervous system in order to bring about various functions. So together, the endocrine as well as the nervous system, they are together known as the neuroendocrine system. Anything related to the nervous system, we usually call it, we usually add the prefix neuro, and we refer to the nervous system. So here we have the neuroendocrine system, which means that the nervous system as well as the endocrine system works together in order to bring about different functions. And we'll see which are the major endocrine glands. So this is the picture given in your textbook. And we have the pituitary gland, which is also known as the master gland. Then we have the thyroid gland. Then we have pancreas. We have adrenal glands. We have ovary as well as the testis. And they are together known as the gonads. Yes, we'll start with the pituitary gland. Where does the pituitary gland go? Okay. Yes, pituitary gland. This gland is situated within the cranium just below the hypothalamus. I'll show the picture. Yes, just below the hypothalamus we have the pituitary gland. Hypothalamus is present just below what structure?
Thalamus.
Thalamus. Very good. So below the hypothalamus, we have a structure called pituitary gland. Before telling all these things, we have to note that in the endocrine system, this particular hypothalamus has a very major role. Hypothalamus is hypothalamus also secretes some of the hormones, but it is not considered as a gland as such, but it governs the different processes of the endocrine system. It can hypothalamus being a close neighbor of pituitary gland, they are very thick friends. Okay, and this pituitary gland always hears what the hypothalamus tells. Only if hypothalamus gives certain feedbacks and orders can the pituitary gland give out the other secretions. Okay, learn it like that in a hypothetical situation. Yes, so again, coming back to the pituitary gland, it's present below the hypothalamus inside the cranium, inside the skull. The pituitary gland is divided into anterior pituitary and posterior pituitary. The anterior pituitary is directly connected with hypothalamus, which regulates its hormonal secretions. So, anterior pituitary has the major connections with the hypothalamus, and this hypothalamus regulates the hormonal secretions of the anterior pituitary. Now, the pituitary gland secretes the growth hormone and many other hormones which direct and regulate the secretions of many other endocrine glands found in our body. This is why the pituitary gland is known as the master gland. So, regarding posterior pituitary, not much is given in your textbook, but I just note that generally the posterior pituitary, they don't produce their hormones of their own. They collect and they store the hormones produced by the hypothalamus and use it whenever needed. Okay, the anterior pituitary is the one who secretes more hormones, including the growth hormone, the hormone required for the growth of human beings. And posterior pituitary, on the other hand, helps in the storage of the hypothalamic hormones, the hormones produced by the hypothalamus. Just note that. I think you don't have to study that, but note it. Yes, why is the pituitary gland known as the master gland? Why? Because this pituitary gland, it secretes so many number of hormones, and one among them is the growth hormone, which helps in the growth of the human beings. Then it secretes several other hormones which sends the messages to other endocrine glands in order to secrete their own hormones. Understood? So this is like a messenger. It sends the message to the other endocrine glands to produce their own hormones. So sometimes the other endocrine glands would be sleeping and this pituitary would set an alarm for them. And they have to wake up according to the calls of this pituitary gland. Understood. And if this pituitary sends a call to the other thyroid gland, then thyroid gland has to produce its own hormone. Then if it sends to the adrenal gland, if the pituitary gland sends messages to the adrenal gland, then the adrenal gland has to produce its own hormone. Understood. That is why pituitary gland is known as the master gland, because it has its own hormones just like the growth hormones. Along with that, it produces several other chemical substances or the hormones which signal the other endocrine glands to produce their own hormones. So this is the headmaster and the others are the teachers in a school. Consider it like that. This pituitary gland gives the main orders for them to secrete. Yes, then you saw the structure. Then some hormones are secreted at a steady rate throughout life, while others are secreted at an appropriate time in life. This is regarding the pituitary gland. Okay. For example, the growth hormone is released steadily through childhood with some spurt during adolescence, but gonadotropic hormones are secreted at the age of puberty, which stimulates the secretion of appropriate sex hormones among boys and girls. As a result, primary and secondary sexual changes take place. So two hormones are mentioned here. One is growth hormone. The other one is gonadotropic hormones. And in growth hormone, it is steadily secreted from the childhood days and it is continued. The same level of secretions are continued all through. And in contrast to this steady secretion or steady rate of secretion, we have some other hormone known as the gonadotropic hormone produced by the or secreted by the pituitary gland. In this hormone, the secretion starts at the stage of puberty. It's not steady from the early childhood of the person. It starts at the age of puberty and it helps to develop the sexual characteristics, primary and secondary sexual changes in a human being. Okay. So why did we tell this example? We have to focus on the point that some hormones produced or secreted by the pituitary gland are secreted at a steady rate, while others are secreted at an appropriate time in life. Okay. So that's about the pituitary gland. Now we have the thyroid gland. I'll show the structure. This is the thyroid gland. Okay. Is the picture clear? You can see, right? Yes. Yeah. Thyroid gland. This gland is located in the neck. It produces mainly the thyroxine that influences the body's metabolic rate. Optimum amount of thyroxine is secreted and regulated by an anterior pituitary hormone, the thyroid stimulating hormone, also known as the TSH. So here what happens is, I already told you pituitary gland is the master gland. So once pituitary gland, the anterior part of pituitary releases the TSH, that is thyroid stimulating hormone. So from the name you can understand, it stimulates the thyroid gland to secrete its own hormone. And what hormone does the thyroid gland produce? The thyroxine. Okay, so it starts from the pituitary. The pituitary produces or secretes the TSH, the thyroid stimulating hormone. The TSH reaches the thyroid gland. Then thyroid gland produces the thyroxine. Understood? Write it in a flow chart and study. The pituitary gland, then comes the TSH, that is thyroid stimulating hormone. Then the TSH helps signals the thyroid gland to produce its secretion, which is the thyroxine. And yeah, thyroxine helps in the metabolic rate of our body. Then the steady secretion of this hormone maintains the production of energy, consumption of oxygen, elimination of waste in body cells, all the metabolic processes. The food we take in has to be broken down into several substances, right? In the whole process of digestion, in the whole process of metabolism taking place, you have to gain energy from the food that you eat. So the production of energy in the consumption of oxygen and also elimination of the waste in body cells, all those factors are maintained by this particular hormone called thyroxine. On the other hand, underproduction of thyroxine leads to physical and psychological lethargy. If thyroid gland is removed in young animals, their growth is stunted and they fail to develop sexually. So if thyroid gland is removed in small animals, what happens is their growth growth and development does not occur in a normal fashion. I remember telling you one example. I told you that certain imbalances in hormones can produce depression, or it can cause depression in certain clients or certain people. So thyroxine is one among them. I mentioned here that underproduction of thyroxine leads to physical and psychological lethargy. So lethargy means a state of laziness or tiredness. So what happens is, the lower production or the underproduction of the hormone thyroxine, it may lead to depression in people, or it may lead to obesity, it may lead to different health conditions, and it makes the person very lazy, and to they won't be much active in all the different activities of their life. They would certainly sit in a couch and just change the channels of the TV. They wouldn't engage much with the other people, and all these factors are because of the underproduction of the hormone called thyroxine. So whenever you meet someone who is like so much lethargic, don't judge that this is because the underproduction of thyroxine. The underproduction of thyroxine might be a reason why this person is sitting like this. Okay. So that's about the thyroid gland. Then we have the adrenal gland. Yes, adrenal gland. Are you familiar with this adrenal gland? No, I don't think so. Okay. Adrenal gland. This gland is located above each kidney. It has two parts, the adrenal cortex and adrenal medulla. So above the kidney, each kidney, we have the adrenal glands, two adrenal glands. And the adrenal gland as such, each adrenal gland has two major parts, that is adrenal cortex, that is the outer part, and the adrenal medulla, which is the inner part. Just like the spinal cord, we saw the gray matter as well as white matter, right? And in the place of white matter, we have the adrenal cortex, and in the inside part, just like the gray matter, we have the adrenal medulla. So the secretion of adrenal cortex is controlled and regulated by adrenocorticotropic hormone secreted by anterior pituitary gland. Then when the secretion of adrenal cortex goes down, anterior pituitary gets the message and increases the secretion of ACTH, which stimulates the adrenal cortex to secrete more hormones. So in thyroid gland we saw the pituitary comes, pituitary produces the TSH, TSH stimulates the thyroid gland, thyroid gland produces the thyroxine. Similarly, what happens here is the pituitary gland comes, it produces the ACTH. Instead of TSH, it produces the ACTH, which is adrenocorticotropic hormone. Note that down. Adrenocorticotropic hormone, ACTH. So again the pituitary comes, then it produces the it secretes the ACTH, which is adrenocorticotropic hormone, and then this signals the adrenal cortex, the cortex part of the adrenal gland, to produce its own hormone. Understood? That's how it goes. Again, starting from the pituitary, then ACTH comes. ACTH signals the adrenal gland. Then adrenal gland produces, or the adrenal cortex of the adrenal gland produces the hormone, its own hormone. Yes. Then we'll see the picture. See, these are the adrenal glands. So the bean-shaped structure, they are the kidneys, and above that we have the adrenal glands. On the two kidneys we have the adrenal gland, and here we have the cross section of it where we see the medulla as well as the cortex part. So the outer part is the cortex part and inner core is called the medulla, and both these divisions have separate hormones. The medulla as well as the cortex produce or secrete different types of hormones. We'll see what they are. The adrenal cortex secretes a group of hormones called corticoids, which are utilized by the body for a number of physiological purposes. Example, regulation of minerals in the body, particularly sodium, potassium, and chlorides. Any disturbance in its function seriously affects the function of the nervous system. So regarding the adrenal cortex, what this produces is called, or the chemical substance, the hormone that it produces, it is named as corticoids. It is a group of hormones. We have different hormones in that. You don't have to study. You say, study the set of the general name given for the secretion of the adrenal cortex, that is the corticoids. So earlier I told you the pituitary gland produces the ACTH, that is adrenocorticotropic hormone. That corticotropic part comes from this name, that is corticoids. Okay. And this is mainly involved in different physiological purposes, mainly for example regulation of the minerals in our body like potassium, the chlorides and sodium and all. That is about adrenal cortex. Then we have the inner core, that is the adrenal medulla. And adrenal medulla, you might have heard about the secretions, the adrenaline and noradrenaline. We studied about adrenaline last day. What was it about? In what responses did we study? Anybody remembers?
Fight and flight.
Fight or flight responses. Very good. Adrenal medulla secretes two hormones, namely epinephrine and norepinephrine. So epinephrine is again a fancy name given to our common thing, that is adrenaline. And norepinephrine is the noradrenaline. It's not NON, it is NOR. Okay. And yeah, adrenal medulla has two main hormones, which is epinephrine and norepinephrine, also known as the adrenaline and noradrenaline respectively. Sympathetic activation such as increased heart rate, oxygen consumption, metabolic rate, muscle tone, etc. takes place through the secretion of these two hormones. Epinephrine and norepinephrine stimulate the hypothalamus, which prolongs emotions in an individual even when the stressor has been removed. So again, I told you when we learned about the sympathetic and parasympathetic system, we learned about the fight or flight response, we learned about the conservation of energy process, and these are the main hormones involved in those processes. Okay. And these hormones are produced by the medulla part of the adrenal gland, which are found just above the kidneys, the two kidneys. And main functions include the sympathetic activation, that is regarding the heart rate, the oxygen consumption, metabolic rate, muscle tone, etc. Then yes, the another important thing is like when you get a beat. Oh, I'll give another example. Yes, you were walking upstairs. You were about to enter your room, and suddenly one of your siblings or one of your cousins made a huge sound and just jumped in front of you. You would be in great shock, right? Or else you would scream out loud. If you don't know that the person is standing there, you would scream out loud, because this is a very common scene in my house. That's why I'm telling this example. I can relate to it very, very much. And yeah, and for a few seconds or few minutes, we'll be having the aftermath of that particular situation, right? Our heartbeat will be still beating, and we'll be like in a great shock at that particular moment. So what happens is, this epinephrine and norepinephrine, they stimulate the hypothalamus. They go and stimulate the hypothalamus, which prolongs emotions in an individual even when the stressor has been removed. So this cousin or this sibling has already gone, but we still have that emotional part in us. That is because this epinephrine and the norepinephrine, they go and stimulate the hypothalamus. So this hypothalamus, this maintains the emotional part. Okay. And after the hypothalamus understands that the body is somewhat about to cool down, then again all the feedback happens, and again as a cycle, the the parasympathetic, the parasympathetic nervous system acts. It has to conserve energy, it has to make us relax, it has to make us calm, and for that different hormones are again produced, and it happens in a cycle. Understood? So that is about the adrenal gland. Do we have anything else? No. So we have some more endocrine glands. This is enough for today. So we'll just revise the spinal cord. Spinal cord, we told about the rope-like structure, then the gray matter, white matter, and the cross section. Then we saw the two main functions, that is relay information from to and fro the brain, and also the reflex action. We saw what the reflex action is, the involuntary actions. Then what else? Then we saw the endocrine glands. They are the ductless glands, and they directly produce the secretions into the bloodstream. Then they produce chemical substances known as the hormones. Then we have the hypothalamus, who has a close connection to the endocrine glands. Then together the nervous system and the endocrine system is known as the neuroendocrine system. Then we started with the pituitary gland. It is the master gland. It has two divisions, anterior and posterior pituitary. Anterior pituitary produces hormones like growth hormone, and it produces at a steady rate, as well as some hormones are secreted at appropriate times in life, like puberty. Then we saw the thyroid gland, which mainly produces a thyroxine. This produces a thyroxine only under the command of the pituitary gland uh, via the thyroid stimulating hormone, that is TSH. Then we saw the adrenal gland. Adrenal gland is present just above the two kidneys, bean-shaped kidneys. Then we have two divisions, cortex and medulla, for the adrenal gland. And when the pituitary produces the ACTH, adrenocorticotropic hormone, the adrenal gland, the adrenal cortex, produces the its own hormones, which are known as the corticoids. And the other group, they have two. The adrenal medulla has two hormones, that is the epinephrine and norepinephrine, also known as the adrenaline and noradrenaline. Any doubts? Too much of terms, I know, But just go through the textbook and let me know if you have any doubts. And tomorrow is our revision. Don't forget, study and come. Okay, till the branches of psychology, right? Okay, so study well then. Okay, bye. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.